Okay, we're ready to start and we're streaming.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Let's Talk Justice in the time of COVID-19 webinar event. I'm Brent Bailey with Community Engagement Work Group. And what I want to do first is turn it over to our language interpreter for some language instructions, and then I'll come back and we'll get started.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Rocio. I'm with the Sensontla Language Justice Cooperative based in Asheville, North Carolina with my co-interpreter Vicky.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Rocío, hago parte de Sensontla Language Justice, la cooperativa por la justicia del lenguaje basada en Asheville, y estoy aquí el día de hoy con mi compañera Vicky.
So we have a few instructions on how this call will be available in Spanish. So there is a feature that Zoom has, and we will be talking through about how to get this.
Entonces tenemos algunas instrucciones de cómo va a funcionar esta llamada para obtener información en español y de qué instrucciones deben seguir para poder escucharnos en español.
In a moment, the interpretation feature will be enabled and you will be able to see it on your bar at the bottom where you can see your mic to mute yourself and to stop your video. Besides the chat box, you will see a little globe that says interpretation.
En un momento se va a activar la opción de interpretación. En la parte de abajo de sus pantallas van a ver la imagen como de un pequeño mundo que dice español y eso es donde deben dar clic para poder activar la opción de interpretación en español.
So there will be two channels, the English channel and the Spanish channel. If you want to listen to this call in Spanish, then you will select the Spanish channel. And if you want to listen to this call in English, then you will select the English channel.
Van a haber dos canales dentro de esta llamada. Uno va a ser en inglés y el otro va a ser en español. Si ustedes quieren escuchar la llamada en español, le dan banderita que dice español. Y si quieren escuchar en inglés, deben seleccionar el icono con la banderita en inglés.
And if for the panelists, if you can just remember that this will be interpreted if you want to be a little paced with your the way in how fast you're going, because sometimes it's a little hard to catch the message. So just pace yourselves, and we ask for one person to speak at a time.
Entonces, para los panelistas dentro de esta llamada, les queremos recordar que todo va a estar interpretado. Entonces, si por favor pueden hablar de manera despacio y suave para darnos tiempo de poder interpretar toda la información y que sea una persona hablando a la vez.
Thank you so much for making this a bilingual space and being able to have language access. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias por crear este espacio bilingüe y por crear acceso al lenguaje. Muchas gracias.
So now we can have the feature enabled. Thanks.
Y ahora vamos a empezar con la opción para poder escuchar la llamada en español.
All right, so what I would like to do is introduce our panelists in just a second. And what we have are a group of individuals from agencies in the community, from law enforcement, district attorney's office, public defender's office, and talking about the plans they've implemented recently as a result of COVID-19 to just make the community safer for all citizens. And so the title of this is Let's Talk Justice. Martin Luther King, in his letter from the Birmingham jail, had an interesting quote. He talked about a negative peace being the absence of tension, in contrast with a positive peace being the presence of justice. And so what has taken place and what we all continue to work towards is justice for each and every citizen in the community. And so I'm so delighted to have this esteemed group of panelists today. We have with us Lori Anderson, who's the Judicial District Manager at the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, Community Supervision. We have Robert Thomas, Racial Justice Coalition Community Liaison. We have Meredith Presley, Assistant District Attorney. We have Leanne Melton, Chief Public Defender, and we have Major Tony Gould from the Detention Division of the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office. And this call today will be moderated by Jay Hackett, Executive Director of Jordan Peer Recovery. And so for those who may be able to enter some questions in the chat function, we may not be able to get to all of them today, but the ones we are not able to get to, we will do follow-up. And so we want you to know that. And at this time, I would like to turn it over to Jay Hackett.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Justice. We're here and we're joined by some awesome panelists, and we want to go ahead and get right into some introductions. And so we'll let the panelists introduce themselves, and we'll just go through. If you could just tell us your name and the agency that you represent. And we'll start with Leanne.
Hi, I'm Leanne Melton. I'm the Chief Public Defender for Buncombe County.
All right, welcome, Leanne. Meredith?
Hi, I'm Meredith Presley. I'm one of the Assistant District Attorneys.
All right, welcome, Meredith. Now we have Robert Thomas.
Hi, my name is Rob Thomas, and I'm the Community Liaison for the Racial Justice Coalition.
All right, thanks. Major Gould.
I'm Tony Gould. I'm with the Sheriff's Office and the Jail Administrator.
All right, and Lori Anderson.
My name is Lori Anderson, and I'm the Judicial District Manager for Probation here in Buncombe County.
All right, all right. We have, I believe that's all of our panelists. And we're joined as well by some folks from the Safety, Justice, and Challenge Grant Steering Committee, some other community members. Of course, with all the support that we have from Buncombe County, we're glad for the work and the dedication of Miss Aisha Shepard, who's working so hard behind the scenes. All right. Now, we only have a few minutes, so let's jump right in, okay? Number one, our first question, and this is for Meredith, Leanne, and Lori. Meredith, what has been your agency's response to COVID-19?
Well, we have been working closely with the clerk's office to continue the cases during this period of time. We have been working to try to handle as many in-custody pleas for in-custody defendants as we can. In appropriate cases, we have made a recommendation to unsecure the bonds, taking in mind community safety when we're making those decisions, what kind of charge it is, what that person's record is, as well as our commitment to victims' rights and notifying the victims in those cases that are victims' rights cases. We've also made some updates on our website. There's a link to the nccourts.gov Find Your Court Date feature, so folks can link to that and find their court date. The clerk's office sends those notices out with that new court date, but that's another feature. We're also working on some more electronic forms where folks can upload an insurance letter if they have a wreck ticket, and also request an administrative court continuance. Those will be active shortly.
Okay, all right. Wow, that's a lot. Can you say briefly what it is to unsecure a bond?
So when a person gets booked on a charge, the judicial official can either set a secured or unsecured bond. If it's a secured bond, they have to post some type of security. It could be a cash bond or through a bondsman. The decision is ultimately the judicial officials to unsecure the bond or not. They can change that from a secured to unsecured bond. So we can make our position as unsecured if that's an appropriate case. And ultimately, that will be the judge's decision whether or not they do unsecured or not.
Thank you, thank you. So that's one of the things that you all have been doing, working
Yes.
to secure bonds. Great.
To work on the
Leanne?
jail population.
Oh, okay, all right. Leanne, what's been your agency's response to COVID-19?
Well, the Public Defender's Office focus has been clients that are in custody. On March 16th, the Public Defender's Office started staffing first appearances to provide additional advocacy to get individuals released as soon as possible. We've been scheduling additional bond hearings for clients to try to get them out of custody. in light of the risk of COVID-19 in jails. We've successfully argued a good cause motion for a high-risk individual who was serving a split sentence in jail that was to be followed by a probationary sentence. She was ultimately released to have her split sentence delayed until after the pandemic. We've been referring other clients who would like to seek a motion for appropriate relief in regards to serving an active sentence to prisoner legal services in light of COVID-19 risk in prison facilities. All of our attorneys in the Public Defender's Office have been set up with video visitation with the jail so they can talk to clients via video when necessary and also more frequently. We are also still going to the jail, however, to speak to clients also. We've been trying to negotiate dismissals or probationary sentences for individuals in jail who cannot make their secured bond. And we've been working with the jail liaison to get individuals released when we've been notified by the jail that an individual is at high risk due to health issues. We've been limiting in-person interviews for clients' safety and for office staff safety, and conducting those interviews via phone. Phone messages are automatically emailed to attorneys, and our team members are working in shifts, office shifts, and remote shifts to minimize the number of people in the office and in the courthouse. And we've encouraged all team members to wear a face covering, and we've had 100% compliance with that in the courthouse in terms of our team members. And we're trying to become more paperless in the office as well, utilizing emails and so forth instead of sending out and having people pick up documents.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. That's a lot, and it's awesome to think about how creative we can be when something like this, as unexpected as it is, when something like this happens as a community and as a justice system. Y'all have been creative about your approach, maintaining safety and order, but also serving people and protecting them. Lori, what has been your agency's response to COVID-19?
Well, we've done several, worked in coordination with both the Sheriff's Office and with the DA's office relating to probation violation court dates, relating to our offenders who had quick dip confinements or weekends to do in jail. When Gould and I worked even prior to having an order mandating that we do those later, early on in the process, we suspended any of that just to have as few offenders as we could coming into the facility. So we're doing those at a later time. We've moved our officers out into the community, so they're working out of their cars as much as they can. We're not bringing the population into the courthouse. We're seeing them at their residences and in the community, just to limit the contact of having them come up here to the courthouse. All of our office also does community service for the community. And for the offender population that has had community service that has been ordered, we have suspended that completely so that we're not taking them into these agencies and putting them at risk and the agencies at risk. So we're doing none of the community service hours at this time. Okay. Our lowest level offender population, we're trying to have them do everything remotely by computer so that we don't have to see them at all if we don't have to.
Okay. So if they're a low level offender, they're able to report remotely, talk, and okay, all right. Thank you. Next question. And this question is for Rob Thomas. You ready over there, man? All right. Can you tell us what the Racial Justice Coalition is and what's the partnership between Racial Justice Coalition and Asheville PD?
Yes, I'll start out by addressing what the Racial Justice Coalition is. The Racial Justice Coalition comes together in commitment to racial equity and to advocate for the rights of people of color with law enforcement through policy change, issue education, and relationship building. Our vision is to mobilize and energize existing organizations doing racial justice work to become a national model for best practices and improve police community relations in Asheville and Buncombe County. The partnership with APD, first I would say that we more or less have a relationship, not exactly a partnership, but we have a lot of common goals in mind. Whereas we focus on police accountability, and the relationship with the police chief, is his job to kind of hold his officers accountable and hold them at the highest standard possible. We are working together on a few different initiatives. Me and the police chief sat down. We've had several conversations about some programs that we'd like to get instituted later on in the year after physical distancing restrictions loosen up. One of them would be where we have community members coming in from marginalized communities that are able to speak with his new recruits and kind of give them a different perspective that may not be accessible whenever a new recruit is coming in and getting trained by just officers. That is one of the programs, and there's also a program that is in the process of being rolled out as well, where individuals are able to kind of receive a second chance, and it's kind of like an intervention type deal, to where an individual that receives attention for the activities they're doing, they will get pulled in with the family members and officials and officers, and kind of able to change their life around. And that's two of the things on my agenda to kind of work with the police chief on. But yeah, it's very important that we have a relationship throughout this whole thing, though, and try to work with each other as much as possible.
Right. You know, relationships are key. And thank you, Rob. And we're glad that the Racial Justice Coalition and the APD have figured out how goals align for the sake of the community at large. You know, it's one thing for people to see us as opposite ends of the spectrum, but when we come together, something really good can come out of it. Thank you. Major Gould, next question is for you. All right. What procedures and processes did the BSCO take to ensure safety of those held in jail? What precautions, what procedures, what are y'all doing to help keep our folks safe over there?
Great question. Opportunity. We implemented protocol.
Just a moment, Major. We struggled hearing you. Could you start over again, please?
Sure. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I appreciate the opportunity, Jay, and great question. Early on, we implemented some cleaning protocols and things in place. We issued out soap at no charge for free to all the detainees there. As Leanne said, and Lori both, and Meredith as well, we worked together to reduce that jail population and get some of those high-risk individuals out of custody. We do a quarantine procedure right now for all new arrestees. We quarantine them for 14 days before we put them in the population. That enables us to ensure that we're not introducing any COVID into the jail population. We're screening. We push the screening of those arrestees, new arrivals, outside of the building. We actually have a tent outside that we're using to do the initial screening of some of those that, if their temperature is elevated. We're screening staff twice a day, both at the beginning of shift and at the end of the shifts. And one of the important things that we spoke about very early on is Sheriff Miller thought it would be very important that we didn't have any restrictions for our detainees reporting if they had an illness. So, typically there is a triage fee associated with sick call. He waived that fee very early on in the process to kind of ensure that nobody would be inhibited from reporting an illness. And some of those that are left in custody because of whatever reason, we think it's very important that they remain in contact with their friends and loved ones as well. So our video visitation provider gave free visit every week to every detainee to allow them to stay in touch with their friends or family via video. Okay. And our partner at the phone that does the phone service for the jail, they gave some CPC, they gave some video calling cards for each of the detainees to be able to make phone calls to their family and friends at no charge as well. So we're trying to keep them in contact as well as, protecting everyone. And, knock on wood, as of right now, we're still zero.
All right, all right. That's good. You know, this type of information is really, really helpful to us, and we thank all of you for your service to the community. The justice system can really seem far away from the community, but you all are serving folks that are us. They are our family. They are our friends, and it's just good to know that you all are concerned about their livelihood, how they're communicating with the family on the outside, and their safety while inside. Before we go to the next question, which will be for Leanne, can any of y'all just tell us why did you sign up to work in the justice system where you are? Like, why do this? Meredith, can we start with you?
To protect the community. I'm from the Asheville area, and I moved back here, and I'm proud to be able to serve my community and try to keep our community safe.
All right, thank you. Rob, why you do what you do?
I do what I do because I am personally invested. You know, I'm from this community, and I believe in the work that I do.
All right, thank you. Miss Lori Anderson?
Just for the same reason that most everybody else has said, to give back to the community, to help affect change in people, and to be part of something that keeps our community safe.
All right, thank you. Leanne, and then Major Gould.
I want to make a difference, and I think everyone is entitled to have a voice, and if someone doesn't feel comfortable or feel like they have the ability to speak up, I want to help be able to make sure that they have that voice in our criminal justice system.
Okay, thank you. Major, why you do what you do?
That's probably a better question than the first one. I think everybody does the job because, you know, they want to be a positive influence with the change, and they want to, influence the direction of the particular field that they're in. I know in ours we do, and we work really hard to do that. And I think that's the chance that we have, is to build the profession that each of us is in, and build it in a direction that's positive for the community as a whole.
That's good. It's good to know you're not just trying to lock people and hold them up.
No, definitely. You know, contrary to popular belief, we're better off if they get out of jail than if we keep them in jail.
All right. So our next question, and Leanne, you answered part of this already. You talked about communicating with defendants during the pandemic. Can you tell us any more about how your office is communicating with defendants? And then what's the best way for somebody to get into contact with your office?
Right now, we're communicating with individuals by phone and by email. So the best way to get a hold of us is to call us at 828-259-3423. All of the Assistant Public Defender's email addresses are on the North Carolina Indigent Defense Services webpage. And the Indigent Defense Services webpage is http://NCIDS.org/ and just go to the statewide defender directory. The attorneys are responding to emails and also their phone messages. Just if someone's phone number changes, please let us know, call us and give us that updated phone number. And if you have an email address, give us that email address as well, so we have an additional way to get information to you.
Okay, all right. So that's if somebody is working with the public defender, if they want information, they can go to the website, ncids.org.
Yes.
Get the information, and they can also supply you with information so that a person can be in touch.
Yes, definitely.
All right, great. Rob, how has the Racial Justice Coalition pivoted in order to respond to COVID-19? We know that y'all are doing important work, but with the change and the introduction of COVID-19, how have y'all pivoted?
We've pivoted in a few different areas. Before I get into the pivot, I want to say that we also intentionally stayed focused on communicating with law enforcement about specific concerns around policing and COVID-19. And we were able to communicate concerns that were coming from the public and create a dialogue with the police chief and try to get some information on proactive measures that he was putting in place to prevent things such as over-policing marginalized communities, arrest for physical distancing citations, and questions around PPP for officers. And he was great on responding to what they planned on doing and, how we shouldn't have to worry about that. And so far, we haven't had any major issues around it. How the RJC pivoted, we created a Facebook page called Facebook group called WNC Response to COVID-19 for those in custody. It was a platform for those who are concerned about our prison and jail populations. There's a lot of different information on it. And Aaron Sarver, the public information officer, was also great on communicating data around the spreadsheets of individuals released from Buncombe County and, keeping us up to date on the statistics and things around that. And the RJC also, we created an input survey that we are putting in community, because with crime lessening and police interactions with actual community members also lessen because of COVID-19, we were able to focus on other serious racial justice issues and also at the same time intentionally focus on the voice of our community and let that drive what it is the RJC is about and what we focus on. So we have that input survey as well out there.
Thank you. And that's a Facebook group. Can you say the name of that again?
WNC Response to COVID-19 for those in custody.
All right. So y'all, please jump on and share your ideas, your questions. And if anybody has a question, you can go ahead and put that in the chat box. And we will get to those questions before it's over. Meredith, next question is for you. How are people staying updated on court dates and proceedings?
So as I mentioned earlier on our website, which is www.buncomeda.org, we have a link to the nccourts.gov Find My Court Dates page. You can also go to nccourts.gov. It's about midway down the page where you can put in either your name or citation number to find your court date. Mm-hmm. The clerk's office, when we continue the cases, they're sending out notice to the defendants with their new court date. Inside that envelope, they're also sending a court date reminder card with that website on there. I also gave stacks of cards for, it's called iPlea, where you can go on as well at the nccourts.gov website. It's a little bit, it's about in the top third of that page where you can click on payments and services. There are options to ask for a dismissal on a compliance ticket, such as an expired registration, or you can request a reduction of a speeding ticket through that
Lord,
program.
I need to use that.
So that will go to our system, and then we can go on and approve that, so the individual doesn't have to come into the courthouse to address some of those.
What's that website again?
It's nccourts.gov.
nccourts.gov.
And there's a payments and services option where you can look for a reduction or a dismissal of something like a expired registration. I gave stacks of cards for our website, buncomeda.org, to go in with those notices as well, so that folks can get a hold of that. And we're also in good contact with the public defender's office and also the private attorneys to keep folks up to date on their court date.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Now, Major, I've got a long question for you. Are there partnerships between the legal system and healthcare, housing, and other community partners to support people and their reentry? How are people being assessed for the stuff that they're going to need when they get out? What's happening when people are released?
Wow. Yeah, so
that one up for you.
Yeah, you did. We have a long-standing partnership with a lot of different groups, including those that you mentioned in the healthcare and the legal profession, particularly those in community groups. And, the linkage and the continuity of care for folks when they get out of custody is a big focus for Sheriff Miller. And so we're trying really hard that's been we've seen a big uptick in a lot of the communications between those various groups during COVID-19, because as everyone's mentioned before, the focus has been trying to make sure that folks are getting out. But, the most important thing is making sure they have what they need when they do get out. It's not just about a number, it's about quality at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I you know, in the spirit of full disclosure, I've done some work with the sheriff's office, Jordan Peer Recovery, and y'all's program director, Kat Williams. She is on fire. I mean, she's just pulling all kind of resources together for folks. And we collectively applied for some grants together that
Yes.
hopefully the DOL will release it, and that'll allow more funding and more resources to be available. Y'all are already working to get people jobs and connected with services.
Yes.
And if this funding comes through, y'all will be able to do a whole lot more. So I know firsthand that y'all are on the ground, ripping and running, trying to make sure that those connections happen. Thank you.
Yeah, Kat's phenomenal. There's no doubt. We got a lot of positive things going for the community, and you know, again, I just appreciate the opportunity to share that with everybody.
And for the community, you know, if you have friends or family or loved ones that are there in custody, encourage them to get involved with the resources that are available. I know in talking with Kat, sometimes people are not signing up for things, and there's lots of stuff available to them if they would like. All right.
Yes.
Next question is for Lori. Lori, can you inform the audience what is the criteria or guidelines for arresting an individual on a technical violation? And have any changes been made since the pandemic?
Well, in terms of a technical violation, it's not our standard procedure, although it's cases are staffed on a case-by-case situation, but it's not our standard procedure to do orders for arrest or to arrest our population on technical violations.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to fill up the jail. We don't want to put people in custody simply on those technical violations when we can have alternatives in the community to try to deal with those. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Y'all are not trying to fill up the jail.
We are not trying to fill up the jail on technical violations.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, because sometimes you have technical violations with extenuating circumstances. And remember, public safety is our primary responsibility, so that always is going to win. But in terms of a regular technical violation, we're not issuing process for those or warrants for those. We weren't doing that prior to, and we certainly wouldn't be doing it now with everything that's going on.
All right. So this next question, though, is for everybody. This next question is for everybody. And I'll call your name and you just answer as directly as you can. During this time, many efforts have been made, but what is needed for those efforts to be sustained beyond the pandemic? You know, we are realizing that there are things that we can do. A year before now, maybe we were just doing things because that's how we always did them, and it was easy to say, we don't do that, we can't do that. But now we've been forced to be kind of creative, right? So after this is over, after this pandemic, and once, you know, the vaccine is here, et cetera, and the curve is flattened below the line, what would it take to sustain some of these wonderful efforts and creative things that y'all have in place? And what measures can be put in place to monitor whether they're being sustained? Is it possible for us to do better long term? Lori? We'll start with Lori and then go to Leanne.
Well, certainly I think it's possible. And I think, whereas we all have a job to do, I think our ultimate goal is the same. And I think that bottom line, what we have to remember, regardless of what's going on, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's just everyday business, is that we have to remember to collaborate, and we have to remember to communicate, and we have to be respectful of each other and the jobs and our responsibilities. And I do think that we can sustain it, but I think good old-fashioned communication and working together is the only way that it can be sustained.
All right. Collaboration, communication, and respect. Thanks, Lori. Leanne,
So
what's next for us to keep going?
Well, I'd like to start with a quote from a United States Supreme Court case from 1987. It's U.S. v. Salerno, which is, in our society, liberty is the norm. Individuals awaiting trial are presumed innocent, and everyone in the court system here in Buncombe County has come together, and we have safely and successfully reduced our jail population by 40% since March 16th of 2020. The court's in-court workload was drastically reduced during this time period because out-of-custody cases were automatically continued to June 1st or after. Everyone in the court system had more time to thoroughly review those bonds. Our court system needs to be properly funded, so there will be the proper amount of time dedicated to reviewing those bonds. In addition, my belief is that our bail policy should require written findings while a secured bond is imposed, and written findings regarding an individual's ability to pay a secured bond should be required. I will tell you that I want to staff first appearances after the pandemic is over, but with our workload, without additional staff, that would be extremely difficult, and for us to sustain if we did not have more funding for our office to staff a public defender at first appearance. Because of the reduced workload in court, we've been able to do it during the pandemic.
Wow. Okay. So are you saying that your office would like to staff first appearances more? Typically, you all cannot because of the workload, but now because the workload is lesser, you can.
Correct.
And if we want to do more of this in the future, we just need more funding to staff first appearances.
We do for my office, and I will say the DA's office needs more funding. Probation needs more funding.
Wow.
Everybody in the court system is underfunded. The court system as a whole sends a lot of money to the General Assembly, to the general fund and court costs and so forth. We actually, based on court costs, I think we end up sending more money to the state general fund than actually is given back through the General Assembly to the court system itself.
Okay.
We're just extremely underfunded.
Wow. So funding, we need more funding. Meredith, what's needed for your efforts to be sustained beyond the pandemic?
I agree with Lori as well. I think communication is the key between all the stakeholders. We have a great group of folks, and just continuing to communicate together. Our office will always be focused on community safety as well as victims' rights, even after this, as we always are.
Okay. All right. Rob, what do you think is needed in order for these efforts to be sustained beyond the pandemic? And what can be put in place to make sure it's being sustained?
Okay. First of all, my answer is coming from a community perspective, whereas I don't work for the county. So hopefully my fellow panelists won't be too angry at me. But
oh, we ready for it. Drop bombs on them.
You know, I got to. It's my job. First of all, I feel as if it was already possible to do everything that was done before the pandemic. The urgency just created the environment for everything to be done and passed. I congratulate everyone for doing an awesome job at getting everything passed. I don't think it should be that hard to sustain what's going on after this. I hate the collateral damage that the pandemic has caused as far as lives and individuals getting sick. But activists in our world, we've literally seen things change overnight that we've been advocating for decades. So I agree with all my fellow panelists that communication is the key, especially between your agencies and community. And on my end, what that looks like is also being able to hold systems and individuals accountable for sustaining the changes that have been made.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you, brother. You know, you said urgency creates the environment for change to happen. And if we can remember that, I think we can do better in the future. Major Gould, what say you, sir? What is needed for these efforts to be sustained beyond the pandemic?
Well, I think everybody has valid points. I think that I think communication and respect are critical, but I agree with Rob. I think, you know, what this pandemic proved was that this could be done. And I think that it's going to be very difficult to go back to exactly the way we were before. It's going to be very hard to replicate that because we've already seen that it can be done. So I think sustainability is within our control. I don't know that we will achieve it at 100%, but I think we're going to make every effort to do that. At least I believe we will.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all again. We do have some community questions. As I'm receiving those questions, I want to say that we appreciate what you all do in the various capacities that you do it. This pandemic, as Rob referenced it, it does have quite a bit of collateral damage. But I think that the creativity that has been and the diligence that has come from your agencies is remarkable. And moments like this allow us to see the humanity that you all, with which you serve, so the community can see what's going on. You know, it's been said, what gets measured gets managed. And if we want this to continue, let's continue the conversation talking about how this is working, how this does keep people more safe, how people are feeling more closely connected and heard by their public defenders, and how people are interacting with NCDPS, and how people are working with the ADA office, and how courts and community and systems and county sheriff, how it all works together for our community. Asheville is a special place. It is a very special place, and we have a lot of good, but we have to connect the dots. If we don't, more and more people could get hurt or detained unnecessarily long, or sick unnecessarily, and in all kind of other ways. So I'm motivated, I'm encouraged, and I really appreciate all of you for sharing this time with us. To the community, if you have questions, please put them in the comment section. We have a few more minutes for those questions. If for some reason you cannot see the screen, it may be because you joined a little later, but we want to make sure that we have some community question. All right. So one question: what will the court What will the court be like most court cases resume next week? What will it be like when these cases resume? What can we expect?
Well, I don't think it's going to go right back to the way it was. This is Meredith Presley, Assistant DA. For administrative court, which is normally the first full week of every month, for June, what we've done is taken those cases and divide those up into more of the month. So we're starting with June 15th. The notices are being sent out to defendants whose cases are being continued. We're dividing those up into smaller chunks of about 25 in the morning and 25 in the afternoon, so that it's a lower volume of folks coming into the courthouse at a time. We'll try to handle as many of those cases without going into the courtroom as we can. So we're doing that, those from the 15th through, I believe, July 1st for that June admin session. We'll still be trying to handle as many in custody pleas as we can, but starting to do more out of custody pleas. What we've been doing in Superior Court has been working well is having a Google Doc to sign up for a time to come in, so that we're not all bunched in a courtroom with a lot of folks in there at a time. So we're going to try to keep doing that.
Okay, that's cool. All right, another question. Was there another question that you all had? Matter of fact, Meredith, while you reminded me of something. If anybody needs to address these driving without registration, et cetera, go to nccourts.org. Payment services.
Yes, it's actually .gov now. It used to be .org, but it's nccourts.gov. You can also call our office. It's 828-259-3410. And we have some electronic forms where our staff can request a dismissal, and that will go to me to approve, so I can approve a dismissal on something like a registration. They can also submit requests for reductions of speeding tickets. So we can try to reduce the amount of folks who are actually having to physically come into the courthouse. Okay. If somebody gets a reduction like that, it can be emailed to the person, and they can either come up or send that into the clerk's office with their payment.
All right. You know, as we look at the justice system as a whole, it can be very scary, but the scariness comes from, for some, it's just a lack of knowledge. When we don't know something, it becomes scary. And for others, it may be a personal experience. What they've experienced makes it scary. It's good to hear us peel back the curtain a little bit and become aware of some of the nuances and some of the things that are available for folks to advocate for themselves or for their situations. If there are no other questions, I don't have any other questions from the community right now. Oh, I have a lot more questions. I think we'll only take a few of these. Many questions in regard to early releases. How many have early releases? How many early releases have we had in Buncombe County? Does anybody know that, or a roundabout figure? Early releases.
I do not know the answer to that, the actual number.
Okay.
I don't either. I'm sorry, Jay.
Well, I don't know what the number of early releases are, but I know that, the releases are determined by the judge, as Leanne mentioned. So the court's making that determination for us. So the attorneys, I assume, are making the plea to get that early release, but the determination's made by the judge.
Okay. All right. So what are the racial demographics of those who have been released or received the unsecured bond? Now, I'm not sure if any of you just have this information readily available, but the question from the audience is, what are the racial demographics of those that have been released and received unsecured bonds? Do we have that available? Is that something that we can provide a written response to?
This is Leanne. I don't have the breakdown by race of the individuals who've been released. I do know that since March 16th, our racial disparities have gone up. And I believe our numbers used to be, in terms of pretrial incarceration, around 25, 26% African American. That number has been hovering around 30% lately in terms of our jail population.
Okay, all right. Next question. How have the changes made over the last 3 months impacted the racial demographics of the incarcerated population? So, Leanne, would you want to expound, or Major Gould?
I can expound. On the WNC response to COVID for those in custody, that is one of the things that we also posted. And going through the demographics, we've seen a steady decline in African American Blacks being detained while whites were being released. And a lot of that is because of the tools that are used to release individuals from custody, such as looking at the nature of the crime, how many previous crimes the individual has had, and a lot of it relates to that, to whereas a lot of white people were able to be released on those conditions to where they hadn't had a lot of a longer criminal background, or they scored lower on the risk assessment tool. And that is what is causing that situation to be the way that it is, simply is that the risk assessment tool factors in certain things, whereas statistically nationwide, Black people are shown to have higher occurrences of things that are being measured within that.
So Rob, are you saying that it's better or it's worse in the last 3 months?
That's tricky, because I would say that a lot of individuals have been released from custody, but at the same time, a lot of Black individuals still aren't able to be released because of the issues that I just stated.
Okay.
So our jail population has drastically increased and drastically increases each week. It's just that the same amount of Black people aren't being released as the same amount of white people because of risk assessment.
This risk assessment seems to be a critical piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Very critical piece. Is there anything that can be said about the risk assessment? Maybe what categories are on it? Is there anything that anybody can say about the risk assessment?
I will say that we recently, I believe it was in February, started using a new risk assessment.
Yeah.
Arnold Ventures Foundation. Prior criminal history is taken into account, whether or not an individual has a violent flag, an individual's age. The younger you are, it tends, according to the risk assessment, to make you more of a higher risk. Numbers of failures to appear in the past 2 years, that's taken into account. In Buncombe County, we used to use the Virginia risk assessment, and I think we've used that pretty much since around 2009, 2010, I think is what we've been using. It's called the VPRA. But we have recently switched to the public safety assessment. That's at the district court level through our judges at the district court level at individuals' first appearances. To my knowledge, we have not implemented that at the magistrate level yet. I know that we have a racial equity work group through the MacArthur Foundation that we're trying to look at all that data and try to figure out what the data is telling us so that we can course correct when the data says that we should course correct. So I know that Mecklenburg County implemented this risk assessment, reduced their jail population significantly. It did not reduce the racial disparities, however, in Mecklenburg County's jail population.
I think, and I want to say this as a plug for the Safety and Justice Challenge Grant, which was funded by MacArthur Foundation and is housed with Buncombe County. This collective work that we're doing, it is working and it's helping. And one of the ways that it's helping and working is with the risk assessment. We talked about what it was, and so we're glad that this change happened. And this change seems to be more practical. And also for the community at large, this risk assessment is letting us know what people are at risk for reoffending, but it can also be used, if you wanted to look it up, it can also be used to prevent reoffending. You know, if you get involved with community activities, if you get involved, if you become informed, if you become part of building up the community, you're less likely to tear down the community. And so let's encourage each other out in the community to do these things that will prevent incarceration in the first place. I think as a community, we can all do that. All right. One of our other questions. What is the protocol? Y'all don't look at me put my glasses on like that. I look a little old. All right. What is the protocol for determining which detainees are tested for COVID-19?
What is the protocol for determining testing?
Yes,
It's going to be
determining who gets tested and who does not.
you know, a medical question. So a medical person, you're going to have the signs and symptoms of COVID before you're going to be tested.
Oh, you show signs before you're tested? That's what?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to be exhibiting some of those signs and symptoms before a test would be given by the medical professionals. Okay.
All right. We have one other question and only 4 more minutes. So this one is for Major Gould. And it's open to others. How is the detention center planning on making sure that eligible inmates can safely cast their ballot from the jail during pandemic? New rules add the new restrictions. Voting by mail include 2 witnesses or a notary. Do you have any information on that? How the detention center plans to facilitate those that can vote, those that are allowed to vote?
I mean, we're working on that development of that process right now, but I don't have specifics for you, but I know that we'll be able to, if that is going to be the requirement that we're asked to meet, we'll certainly be able to accomplish that.
Okay. All right. The risk assessment tools emphasize racism and bias that exists in the justice system. Can we consider not using the risk assessment tools during the pandemic? That was a question that came from the audience. All right.
I just want to say that that I agree with that assessment of the risk assessment tool. As far as what you said, it works, but at the same time, it just shows that systemic and structural racism exists a lot deeper. And the risk assessment tool, at the end of the day, it's only a tool that picks up and registers certain occurrences and things. And I think some situations and cases need to be determined by a case-by-case basis. And I I feel as if the risk assessment tool should not be the end all and be all to who is released just because you score a low score. I think it takes more than that to really see what is going on, because a lot of, for instance, previous charges to where it is if we are being over-policed and we are being stopped more than regular, we're more likely to have pre-existing charges. If you look at several different statistics nationwide, minorities are charged at a higher rate and charged at a more extensive rate, whereas two individuals commit the same crime, one white, one black, one may receive a more extreme charge than the other one. And
Right.
so I just feel as if the risk assessment tool works to a certain degree, but there still needs to be a little bit of case-by-case analysis that goes deeper than the risk assessment tool.
Yeah. Well, we are, and I agree, and thank you, Rob. We are, we're in our last minute, and so I want to leave you all with this. We know that our country, our communities have had problems before. We all know that disparities exist. And we know that no matter what tool we use right now, if it was created somebody can abuse it. Somebody can misuse it. And what we would like as a community and even as community servants, we want to work together and we want to try things and then listen to each other and try to make them better. So whether it's a risk assessment or a court protocol or a communication process, whatever it is, let's be open to test it out and see if it works so that we do not leave critical members of our community behind. If it is true that people are innocent until proven guilty, let's really walk that out. And if it is true that after somebody has paid the price for their crime, that they really can turn over a new leaf, let's figure out how to make sure that that leaf is very new and not just a different side of the same leaf. Let's really work to see how this thing can be better. We appreciate you all that work in our justice system, and we've got your back. We're just asking that you all continue to let us in, continue to communicate with us, and let's make Asheville and Buncombe County better for everybody, all right? Community, we thank you all for your time. We were not able to answer all of the questions, but we will respond to those questions. We have them written down, and we'll do our best to get back to you. Please, if you want to stay in contact, if you want this conversation to go on, let Aisha Shepherd know, let the community know, let folks know that this is working. And maybe this is something that we've done better at. And in the future, we can sustain this if we just make a decision to do it. All right? Thank you all for your time. It's 2:00, and this has been Let's Talk Justice. I'm Jay Hackett, the Executive Director of Jordan Peer Recovery. Y'all have a great day and stay safe.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.